This is Elisa from Inky Rocks, and today we're going to do a little bit of mad scientist stuff. This is the 3 Oysters My Color Do-It-Yourself Ink Kit, 4 Seasons of Korea. 3 Oysters sent me this kit to review. I'll post their information in the detail box below. After you remove the cardboard cover, there's this aluminum box. The back side basically lists the contents of the box and the fact that it's made in Korea. On the inside is an envelope with the directions, a foam liner, and then your inks. There's a glass pen, 2 small plastic beakers, 2 bottles of toner, and then 10 different colors of ink. In the directions packet is a color chart, 4 postcards to write your recipes down on, and then the instructions themselves. Their attention to detail on this was great. On this color chart, the inks are all lined up in the same order as the color chart. And then you have this extra empty bottle to put the ink that you make in. The color chart has the 10 different inks across the top and then along the side. Today I want to make both a blue and a red, and I want the blue to be kind of turquoisey. So I go along the cyan column and take a look, and I need to use either emerald or green to give it kind of a turquoise color. If I want it to be darker, I would add black, and if I wanted it to be lighter, I would add the toner. The instructions say if you add 2 drops of black ink to one of these 10 inks, it makes it a shade darker. And if you add 4 drops of black ink, it makes it 2 shades darker. In the same vein, if you add 4 drops of toner, it makes it a shade lighter. And if you add 8 drops of toner to one of these inks, it makes it 2 shades lighter. This color chart just makes a really great starting point. So to make my turquoisey blue, I just randomly decided I would use 20 drops of cyan because I figured I would only use about half the amount of the ink that's in the bottle. And then I figured I would use half the amount of emerald because emerald looked a little more closer to turquoise than just plain green. While you're doing this, you need to have like a really strict procedure. I kind of haphazardly did some of this. Instead of writing it down right away as soon as I made the drops, I ended up having to go back and look through my film to see exactly what I did. Then, as per the instructions, you stir up the ink really well with the back end of the glass nib. And then I dipped the glass pen in there and checked it out. And it looked like it was just a little bit too light for me. As these bottles are not labeled with their color names, I decided to line them up to keep track of them. Since I knew I was going to use toner in my ink because the instruction says that it reduces the viscosity, I knew I could afford to use black to darken up my ink. It still wasn't dark enough, so I added another drop. I wanted to make this a little more of a complex color, so I decided to add some other colors. I decided to add some red, and after dropping and testing and then consulting the chart again and dropping, I also decided to use magenta. So after testing several times, I ended up using 3 drops of red and 3 drops of magenta in 20 drops of cyan, 10 drops of emerald, and 2 drops of black. I was satisfied with the color, and after testing a couple of times, I decided to go with 6 drops of toner. And the final result was this. I went through basically the same procedure in making my red. I wanted a dark cherry red, but I ended up adding too much violet and magenta, and as a result I had to go back and add a bunch more red and then some yellow. But I'm happy with the results. I figured I made 2 inks, so I had to do a quick ink review. As usual, I'm using Tomoe River and Graphilo. There's nice shading on the flecks, and the fine and medium nib lines are nice and dark. I wrote out my recipe for the waterproof test, and it was surprisingly water resistant. It might be because of the black ink, it might be a pigment ink. The color kind of lifted off, but you could see the outlines of the writing quite well. On Tomoe River, it dried between 5 and 10 seconds in the fine nib, and just a little bit longer than 10 seconds in the medium nib. The fine and medium on the Graphilo was not as dark as Tomoe River, and then there was nice shading in the flecks. And again, there seems to be some water resistance. The fine line dried in a little over 5 seconds, and the medium line dried in a little over 10 seconds. On the Tomoe River paper, the fine line, medium line, and flexi line all were so dark that they really didn't have much shading. However, the medium line showed a little bit lighter blue. And again, there was a surprising amount of water resistance. In the fine line, it took about 15 seconds to dry. And in the medium line, which laid down a lot of ink, it took over 15 seconds to dry. I think it was mainly because I put so much toner into the ink. But it wasn't one of those inks that never dry. It completely dried. There was not any problem smearing afterwards. In the Graphilo paper, it was a dark, thin line, and then the medium and the flexi line had a little bit of shading. And just like on the Tomoe River, there was a surprising amount of water resistance. The fine line dried in a little over 10 seconds, and again the medium line took over 15 seconds to dry. The cool part was the chromatography strips. Here on the red, you can see the black line, and then the red, and then a little bit of the orange, and then the magenta, and then finally the violet. On the Inky Rocks Blue, you can see the black, and then the red, and then some of the emerald, and then the magenta. Three Oysters didn't give me much information on where you can buy this kit now. I did find online deskbandit.com, an Australian website, and citylux.sg, a Singaporean website, that both sell the kit for somewhere between $65 and $70 US. I also saw that 60 milliliter bottles of the individual colors were available. This kit was a lot of fun, and I think when it becomes a little more widely available, it's definitely worth the cost of, like, say 2 or 3 bottles of ink to actually be able to play around and make your own ink. It's fun, and I think you learn a lot in the process. Thanks to Three Oysters for sending me this kit. I really enjoyed it. If you have a better way of mixing inks than my haphazard way, I'd appreciate some comments. Any kind of feedback, good or bad, would be useful. If you're interested in fountain pens, stationery, or Tokyo, I'd appreciate a subscribe. And no, the ink doesn't really do this. I just added dry ice.